Welcome to the Blue Dot, Northern Kentucky's premier political podcast, brought to you by the Kenton County Democratic Executive Committee. Welcome back to the Blue Dot podcast, where we explore the people and ideas that shape change from the ground up. Today's conversation is especially important because it focuses on something that often gets overlooked, and that's the power of local grassroots organization. Thanks so much for being here. I'm Natalie McDonald.
And I'm Brian Kale. Our guest today is Missy Spears, an advocate, activist, and independent journalist who has spent years amplifying community voices, challenging systems of power, and reminding us that real change often starts close to home. Missy, welcome to the Blue Dot podcast.
Thank you guys so much for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. And you have a really extensive bio. So you currently serve as the executive director of Queer Kentucky, which is a statewide not-profit organization and journalism outlet focused on LGBTQ culture, health, and civic engagement. And I know you've been covering a lot of the Kentucky General Assembly, among other things with them. You're also the co-founder of the Community, and I'm sure I'm saying that wrong, but the Free Fridge program there in Covington, as well as you hold several leadership roles in organizations across Northern Kentucky. So let me hand it over to you. Tell us a little bit more about you and all of the great stuff you've been working on.
Oh, thank you. Well, as you know, I love titles and power. So yes, I am the executive director and co-founder of the Fridge. I love that. We opened that in 2021, just opened a second location a couple months ago. I also serve as the vice president of ROMA, the Residents of Main Strasse Association, my neighborhood group, which is like super suburban, but I live in the city. And then on boards, I'm the co-president of the Kentucky Civic Engagement Table, which is amazing. I love the work that they do. And then I serve on a couple community advisory boards, the Cincinnati Art Museum. And then I'm sliding off of the WCPO and University of Kentucky Center for Transitional Sciences boards. So I have a little bit more extra time. And then recently I started organizing my neighborhood. Just people are freaked out over ICE, just getting people together. We're organizing some trainings for folks and just giving people an outlet to talk about things. So those have been the most recent things I'm doing.
That's great.
Can we tell our listeners just about the Fridge a little bit? Because I think it's such an amazing initiative. And I've gone down there, I don't know how many times, countless times, to bring down different items. I would like love to highlight that.
Yeah. So the Fridge is a great example, I think, of a project that you just can do. Most of my projects revolve around don't ask for permission. I just ask for forgiveness. And so the Fridge is an outdoor, fully operational kitchen refrigerator that has a shelter built around it. Folks can walk up and drop food off in it. We've got a fridge, freezer, outdoor pantry for dry goods. People can come and shop any time of day. They can take one item. They can take everything out of it if they want. Whatever they need, they can take. And then we also have like a microwave there. And then in the warmer months, we have a hot and cold water dispenser for them too.
I've even brought down like pet supplies, and I don't know if that's legal or not, but I have, and I've dropped those off there.
People need it. There are certain things that we won't advertise that we take just because we don't want to be like overwhelmed with it. But, the pet supplies, menstrual products, those things people need. Expensive.
Yeah, people have pets and people need that. And pet food and pet supplies are really expensive. That's probably really helps out a lot. And one of the areas we want to discuss, which I can see with all of your community involvement, you're like a dead ringer for this, is grassroots organizing. As you've mentioned, all the community involvement, you're a champion of local organizing and often quite outspoken for the need for it. But it can be really difficult. Usually there's not a lot of support or funding at local levels. So, for instance, the Community Fridge. Talk to us a little bit about how you've been successful in this area and what's your secret sauce for getting those things accomplished.
Man, mutual aid, I would say, before I ever asked anyone in the community to donate to anything that I did or sign up for anything, I already had a history of giving back. So my thing is, before I ever ask you for anything, I need to make sure that I've done something for you or your community to kind of justify that.
Set the example. Yeah.
Yeah. You got to give back 51%. It always has to be more than you take. And I know that I take up a lot of air in the room. So I need, so I'm constantly trying to find new ways to fuel my creative spirit that I love doing these projects with, while also like helping folks out.
Yeah. That mutual aid is critical. And I will tell you, you just talked about some of the organizing you're doing around potential ICE coming into our area, or just, the fear that's around that. And, just how to educate everyone and how to, so they know their rights. And I have family in Minneapolis, and I've been up there a couple of times, and talk about the mutual aid and the organizing they're doing up there is amazing. And that's really was an introduction to me about how communities can really come together when there's a need like that. So I commend you for doing that.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's all the community, like I love that Covington has such an active base of residents, and they show up for things. Like we fundraised for the fridge primarily on Facebook.
Yeah.
Like it's just so easy to talk to people, tell them what you want to do. And if you have that trust with them, they jump in.
Well, that kind of organizing and getting people together behind a movement can be particularly difficult with politics. Many people are disengaged or feel disenfranchised or defeated, especially now over the entire political process as a whole. And can definitely be intimidated by everything that's going on. We were just discussing ICE and some of the, current administration's policies. But from your view, how can people like us commoners out there, get people motivated, engaged, and included?
Well, I can tell you what I do. I don't know if it'll work for everyone. I use a lot of honesty. I like to talk about uncomfortable things. Sometimes I use humor. But I think the biggest thing is like when I walk into a room, we're going to talk to someone, the first thing that they see about me is that I'm gay. The second thing is that I'm a woman. And I think most people, especially in political circles, expect me to lead with that. And instead, I'm going to talk about why, we don't have enough money to do a car repair and a home repair in the same paycheck, or how expensive groceries are. I want to connect with someone over the things that we have in common weeks and months before I ever talk to them about why they should care about me being gay or support me in some aspect of their life that they may not understand. And so I think the main thing is we just need to lay that common ground so we can have that relationship with that person, because it's all about relationship building.
Yeah, I found that when we talk to people, we find that we have a lot more in common with them than we don't.
Yeah.
But it's about making that step and really being to look past the things that make us different to find the things where we align. And I think there's a lot more of that than the powers that be want us to realize.
So much. I mean, like, how many of us make less than $1 million a year, or like less than $250,000 a year? Like we have
right.
95% of our lives in common, but we're going to like fight over that 5%. And it's frustrating, but we can get through it, I feel like, just by, talking a little bit different with folks.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you mentioned the work that you've been doing with ICE or in your community. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that, because I have been seeing different groups pop up at fiscal court meetings around town. And I don't know if you're part of that, or is there consolidated movements? Maybe you could talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not part of the group that's been showing up at the courts, although what they're doing is amazing. I love it. We are just kind of like are just neighbors that are getting together. I made a post in our neighborhood Facebook group that I was going to be at a local bar from 5 to 7. If anyone wanted to show up and talk about things, we could. We had 40 people show up.
Wow.
We formed communication trees just because, people feel uncomfortable leaving a digital footprint sometimes, especially if you're going to be called, a domestic terrorist or something if you mess up. So we have like old school church style phone trees on like index cards where we have everyone's information. We formed a signal chat just so we can share like training information. And then the big thing we went over was like working together to prevent disinformation in our neighborhood. So we passed out some information on the SALUTE acronym, which helps you identify ICE in the neighborhood. That way we don't have any more, at least less instances like there was a fake fear that Hotel Covington had ICE agents, and it took off on the internet. And all someone had to do was walk down there and talk to someone. And so we were able to get that cleared up. But hopefully we can prevent that for other small businesses that really have our back just by, following a few steps.
That Hotel Covington thing went off like wildfire very quickly. And it was a shame because I think they're a really cool business. They're out there supporting the community. So it's good that we got out there and dissolved that myth as well. So, and I also love what you're doing with Queer Kentucky. And in this 24-hour news cycle that we're in, I think people can become very siloed. And there's been this concerted attack on journalism, especially in free speech with the current administration, on independent journalists. So if you could tell us a little bit about what Queer Kentucky is and why it's especially important now.
Yeah, so Queer Kentucky is a LGBTQ newsroom. We're the only one in the Bluegrass state. We're very small. We work with primarily freelance writers across the state. Try to work with, if we're telling a story in Eastern Kentucky, we try to get a writer that's in Eastern Kentucky. Try to make sure that the people that are telling the stories are the people that are impacted by it and have the most information. And we've all seen the attacks on the media this past year. So I do think that independent media has become so important. And also the attacks on the queer community. We had, a record number of anti-LGBTQ bills last year. I anticipate we're going to see that again this year. They're going through a lot. It's so hard to get information as is that I really love what we do. And I love how we can connect with people.
Yeah. So when did Queer Kentucky form? When was that founded?
2018 by Spencer Jenkins, who's a journalist.
Okay.
Yeah, he drove around the state with a Polaroid camera and would take pictures of people that you would never normally see uplifted in the news, and then he would write their stories for them.
It's fantastic. I was curious because when I was kind of checking that out earlier today, prepping for the pod, I was thinking exactly what you were just talking about, Natalie, how important independent journalism has become and how many mainstream journalists or former cable journalists you've seen now move into the independent space or now also have podcasts or whatever are doing independent media. So it's almost like this prescient foresight that independent media has now become so important. And who would have known 8 years ago that honestly, that's where I get 85 or 90% of my news now. There are still a few cable outlets and people that I follow, but in general, it's all independent. It's completely flip-flop from where it was 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah, I'm the same. I'm following people on Substack, finding creators that I trust. The one thing that people just really need to do, and I'm sure there's more information out there about this, it's just making sure that we're following, journalists that are checking their sources and aren't just in headlines and repurposing them. That unfortunately keeps popping up, but the high quality journalists that are doing it, oh my God, they're outstanding.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I mean, so in some ways you can kind of ferret out the bias or the position of the independent journalist where there's that bias of a newsroom, traditional newsroom and journalism in the past as well, so in some ways it's almost easier to kind of determine where this person's come from instead of an organization. And where is that position actually coming from? Is that coming from the editorial staff? Is that coming from ownership, or is it coming from the independent journal, the journalist, him or herself? So now you're going straight to the source, so to speak. But I do agree. I always look for footnotes and I always try to double check, but there are plenty of them out there that are just doing a fantastic job. And Substack it's almost gotten too crazy with so many out there now that I want to follow. I'm following about 50 different outlets right now. It's crazy.
Yeah, everyone's trying to make their $5 a month on Substack.
Right.
Well, yeah, with Substack, and then you have all these podcasts, it's really hard. And you have to realize that if you are going to do something like independent journalism, I wouldn't consider maybe what Brian and I do it's kind of independent journalism. But there's a responsibility there. There's a responsibility to make sure that what you're talking about and what you're reporting on is accurate. And I think that the listeners will be able to figure that out. So those are just really good points, Brian, like you said.
Yeah, I have
a good point. I have a good point every now and then.
You made a great point though about how they frame the articles, Yeah. My favorite things about the direction independent journalism has gone into is that, you have the same set of facts, you give them to 4 different journalists, you're going to get 4 completely different stories depending on where they work. And it's so easy to share a story and not hit on why it's important. And I feel like independent journalism allows us more to get to the core of that versus the watered down versions we often see.
Yeah. I would definitely agree. I mean, it's easier to look at differing opinions and viewpoints through independent media because I have some who I follow when I read one. I know this other person is going to be, maybe not polar opposite, but either, add some different shades of gray to the same argument and discussion. And it helps you kind of formulate your own opinions about it because it's too easy to get into an echo chamber if you're just following just the New York Times, and I will never look at the Wall Street Journal, and things like that. And this way, it's very easy to sample across the spectrum and then help formulate your own ideas and values around that.
Definitely.
Well, we also wanted to talk about some of the other leadership roles. You only named about 25 of them there when we first started out. So we'll have to pick from the list that you've been a part of. But one of them is the Kentucky Civic Engagement Table. It's an advocacy group that supports and coordinates efforts of small activist groups in Kentucky, which I love, supporting reinstating voting rights for Kentuckians, so important with felony convictions, and increasing voter engagement among racial and ethnic minorities in Kentucky. This is so critical and just something that's very near and dear to both of our hearts. So tell us a little more about the work that these organizations do.
Yeah, oh my gosh, I love the Kentucky Civic Engagement Table, KCET for short, if I end up using that acronym.
Okay.
Oh, it's fantastic. I've been there for 5 years on their board. I'm now in halfway through my last term. And what they do is they are a state table. And I'm not sure how familiar people are with those, but essentially they work as a larger strategic organization. And then we have 30 plus member organizations like the ACLU of Kentucky, Planned Parenthood, Kentuckians for the Commonwealth, and then some smaller ones like Louisville Tenants, now Kentucky Tenants. And they basically work on strategy. So if you're going to go and knock on doors in this county, they want to make sure that 3 other organizations aren't doing the exact same thing. And then they also allow people to share information in van for, voter records. That way their goal is they want to talk to everyone, I believe, 7 times before they even approach them about voting. So, hey, did you talk to this person about housing? Did we have an organization that stopped by to talk to this person about food access or food insecurity? And then once they've had those groups cycle through, hey, now we want to talk to you about who you want to vote for. So I just really love that down approach of figuring out what people need and showing them, we can't solve your problems, but we're here. We want to listen to you. We can share with you what we can. And then giving them a little bit of information about civic engagement.
And honestly, I was unaware of the organization. And so many times we talk to people, there are so many different groups out there. And that's why I asked about the ICE groups is, gosh, there's so many. If we could just kind of come under one umbrella so we knew what was going on. And it sounds like that's exactly what the Civics Engagement Table is trying to do, right?
Yeah, I don't want to say that it was formed out of Stacey Abrams' plan in Georgia because we just don't have the same population, but it was definitely influenced by that. And they do stay under the radar. We haven't had a website, we haven't been on social media or anything. That may be changing over the next year. They've talked about being a little bit more public facing, but yeah, it's just so much fun to work with a group that just wants things to be efficient. And that's their main goal.
Yeah. So, we were wondering about the establishment organizations like county parties, what they're missing that these smaller activist groups are tapping into. Obviously that coordination and the ability to coordinate or willingness to coordinate is one of them. What else is out there that maybe larger parties or affiliations can learn from you guys?
Yeah, I would just say, leading with what does that person need before I ask you to do something for me, which is tough though for political campaigns because they launch and then you have 9 months, roughly 9 months to connect with as many people as you can. Which is why when candidates talk to me, I try to tell them, hey, if you're going to start running in 2 years, 3 years, start doing the work now. It's hard for you to have relationships in your community or not have any name ID and then jump into a race. Start building that trust early.
Yeah, that's exactly what we talked about in our precinct organizing, which I know, Natalie, that's probably what you're thinking as well. I mean, go ahead, because we talked about them, getting out early and forming these relationships and not the first knock on the door saying, hey, vote for this person.
Yeah, and I think it helps too when they start. I'm a big advocate for starting at lower seats and then building your way up. I think a great example of that locally is Sarah Froelich, who was on the Park Hills City Council and is now running for county. I think that when you run those school board races, you run the city hall races, you're figuring out how elections run. You're figuring out the ins and outs, what barriers you're going to hit next time. And then you can continue to just kind of claw your way up from there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Sarah's going to be on our podcast in a couple of weeks. So I have her to talk about her campaign. Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
She's great.
Yeah, she absolutely is. And I think that one of the things over the past 2 years that at least at the Kenton County Democrats that we've restructured, and all last year it was focused on deep listening and canvassing, not asking any money and not asking really for anything other than if people want to get involved and put boots on the ground to try to set us up for it. Now, here we are. This is an election year. It's a big one. We've tried to like reach out to the community. So when we go back and say, hey, get out and vote, maybe they're going to feel a little bit more comfortable with us and saying, well, heck yeah, I see what you guys are doing.
Right.
It's hard though, but it goes back to that precinct level, like Brian said, and getting like talking to your neighbors. You know, we set up in our precincts right now. We've been going door to door talking to people and saying, hey, we're going to have like little cookout. Get your neighbors together and talk, and just not asking for anything, just asking for conversation for those who want it.
I miss those porch parties that we had in 2020. Those were such a great way just to get 10, 15 people together, have an intimate conversation. You maybe didn't agree on everything, but you walked away and you knew your neighbors a little bit better.
Right.
It just makes the next touch point and the next touch point that much easier.
Absolutely. Well, are there any of your other organizations that you want to talk about a little bit that maybe we missed? Or did we catch them all?
Oh, man, I feel like we maybe caught them all. I will always give a shout out, though, to the Cincinnati Art Museum. I love volunteering for them. They have done such a great job about bringing in a more diverse slate of art, you know, more interesting artists. They did the culture, the hip hop exhibit 2 summers ago. Right now they have the Mad Magazine exhibit going, which is incredible.
Oh, it was great.
I just love seeing these like old historic organizations doing the work to reach people that normally wouldn't walk in those doors.
Yeah. Art After Dark, favorite events.
Yes, I love it.
Yeah, we've been members for really just a couple of years now. We just decided, and even now when the admission is free, which what a benefactor that said, you know, free admission for life to all the general exhibits. You know, we still pay our membership because just as you say, to support such a great mission and everything you do, bringing the arts and a real varied example of art to everyone, I think can get people excited about it. You know, the Mad Magazine thing, I remember some of those as original, you know, because like 74 was their biggest year of circulation or something like that I read. And that's the year I graduated from high school, totally aging myself here. But my kids who are, you know, in their mid 30s or whatever, some of them, they were kind of discovering this for the first time and they just had a riot. So, and then we went off and started looking at all the other things as well. So it gets people to the place and start discovering other things, you know, and you get your foot in the door.
No, totally agree. And I love that exhibit. I remember growing up in the 80s and I would buy them and my mom just thought they were comic books. And I would read through them at like 3 years old. And I didn't understand half of the stuff, but I was just like, I cannot wait to be an adult and like know what this is actually.
I know you're doing something here.
You fold the pages to make the other little image. Do you remember that part of it? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Best part.
Yeah, those were hilarious.
So, but, well, you know, Missy, I think you're a friend of the podcast. I think you're a listener of the podcast. So you probably know we do a lightning round with all of our guests.
Yes.
So you're going to get the lightning round treatment if you're up for it.
Oh, I am down. Let's do it.
Okay. All right. This one's easy for you. Let's say, what is a tiny thing that brings you joy?
My cat Humps. He is amazing.
And he made an appearance back there.
He did, yes. I'm surprised he's got back.
But what about the dog? Is there, you know?
Oh, I love the dog, but the cat is still kind of new, so it has like that new cat feel, you know? Where like I'm not used to someone like climbing up and hugging me. So it's just so cute. He's a Covington Street cat. I'm just so lucky to have him.
That's awesome. Awesome. All right. If you can only eat at one Covington restaurant for the rest of your life, but you get to pick which one, what you gonna choose?
Larry's All-American Cafe in Main Strasse. Now, everyone that's listening, don't come here because it's a dive and it's usually empty, and I want to keep it usually empty.
Right.
Restaurant/bar in the city. The brunch is amazing. It's so cheap. Great family owns it. The staff is amazing. They're so community-centered. Yeah, Larry's all day.
It's funny because I've heard about Larry's. It's on my list, but I never like see it just passing through, and I don't think it comes to mind to go there, but now I'm going to make sure that I do.
Yeah, it's like tucked free in Main Strasse, so you won't see it when you like drive down Main Street.
Yeah.
But it's totally worth it.
I'll have to check that out because that's definitely my kind of spot. You know, my wife and I, whenever we travel, we're always driving around looking for the construction trucks because, you know, that's the best, you know, diner, greasy spoon, you know, where all the locals go. We always ask, and that's where you get the best food.
Tater tots and hot dogs.
I can't beat that.
You're talking my language.
That's Brian's love language.
Tater tots, I was saying it again.
All righty, Missy, what is one quirky thing that you're proud of?
I hope this counts. I'm proud of how few enemies I actually have.
I think that's valid.
Yeah. I say things that other people sometimes wouldn't say. And then in the vein of efficiency, people disagree with me a lot. I've been into fights. I know I've been in online fights with some of you, but like the fact that we can disagree and still talk and be productive and work together in the community, I love that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, question number 4. What's a skill you thought you'd need in life, but it turns out you didn't?
A college degree.
Oh, yeah.
No comment. Well, we're trying to, I don't know, I walk the fence of trying to encourage people to go to college, but also making sure that many people like, my youngest son, college wasn't for him. He's doing fine, so it's not for everybody.
Yep. You look back at all the things you learned in college, and you're like, I didn't use 5% trigonometry, whatever it is. Anyway, all right. Going through a little journalism question. Who's the better mainstream journalist, Anderson Cooper or Rachel Maddow? Or neither?
I'm going to say Rachel Maddow because she's family.
Yeah.
So I can't leave. I guess Anderson is too, just on the other side of the token. So I'm going to go with Rachel.
Well, she's so damn smart and so well prepared with everything she does. And
I'm Rachel all day long.
Amazing.
I love especially what she's been doing, where she's really been highlighting the activist groups and, people getting out and the fight against the ICE detention centers, prisons, the warehouses they're trying to buy, stuff like that. Bringing that stuff to light, that is so critical. And like you said, Natalie, she is so super smart. Her commentary is razor sharp.
100%.
I would love to see her on New Year's Eve with Anderson and Andy Cohen, just having drinks.
Oh, yeah. That would be fantastic. Missy, just thank you so much for all your work, for sharing your insight with us. How can people get information about the organizations you're working with and championing? I know you have several of them, but what's an effective way, or what are the ones you want to make sure to highlight on the pod today?
Yeah, thank you. Queer Kentucky, our website, queerkentucky.com. We also have a newsletter you can sign up for. And then we are really popular on Instagram at Queer Kentucky and Facebook as well.
Okay.
That Facebook algorithm snapped back for us this year, which was amazing. And then the community fridge, you pronounced it right, Natalie.
Good.
Yeah. That is, you can find us on Facebook and Instagram, just under community fridge. And then for all the other little stuff that I do, people can just follow me. I'm at Missy.Spears on Instagram.
All right, great.
Thanks again, Missy. Super appreciate it. Really enjoy talking to you and watching and following everything you do.
Well, thank you guys so much for having me. This was awesome.
Yeah, it was great meeting you. It's great talking with you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you again for listening in. And don't forget, you can join the conversation at our Facebook and Instagram pages or blue.podcast.com. And if you like listening to the podcast, please consider donating to it, which you can do by clicking on the donate link at blue.podcast.com. Until next time, stay curious, keep the facts in focus, and never stop fighting for what matters. Peace out, everybody.